Chaos at the Capitol, mixed messages from the president. Let it be known, we're going to tackle it all this morning. We got the chaos, of course, and late last night, a Capitol Police officer died from wounds sustained during the riot. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Governor Muriel Bowser. Yeah, you heard me right. Governor Muriel Bowser. Also, we got in entertainment. The Grammys have been canceled, but some sad, sad news in the world of music. Lauryn Hill. We're going to talk about Lauryn Hill. She didn't die, don't get me wrong, but we got some sad news about Lauryn Hill. And sports. The NFL playoffs start this weekend. But more importantly for me, there was a huge baseball trade last night. We're going to talk about that too. But we also going to talk about you guys. We're going to take your questions. So give me your questions. Let's talk. It's an interactive show. Let it be known. We're going to start with a great, great publisher from the Washington Informer, Denise Rolark Barnes, who can tell us all things Washington, D.C. and beyond. Denise, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Stacy, and congratulations on the new show. This is fantastic. I will be tuning in. Let it be known. Let it be known, Denise.
Yes. So let's jump into it. So late last night, Officer Brian Sicknick died of his wounds. Now there has been a lot of talk about what was going on. How did it happen, Denise? I know that many are saying we're getting a lot of celebrities. Joe Biden in his speech yesterday said, if it was Black Lives Matter, it would never have happened. There's videos, there's photos showing the show of force when there's been Black Lives Matter protests. Denise, what's your take on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Stacy, because we've had a couple of discussions about this, and my take is evolving. But I think because of the relationship that I know that the Metropolitan Police Department, and in both cases with Metropolitan Police or with the police who were involved in both of these situations, they were not all Metropolitan Police Departments, members of the MPD in the District of Columbia. And so, I understand it wasn't until around 1 o'clock or so on Wednesday when MPD was given a call. The mayor, everyone, all of the police forces, or at least the Capitol Hill police, all of them had asked, let us know if you need some support. And they said they did not, that they had this handled. Same thing on the Black Lives Matter Plaza. As we know, there were police officers and others from other departments or jurisdictions that were on that plaza that pushed and ended up in altercations with demonstrators during that. So I guess what I'm trying to say, in some respects, we're kind of mixing apples and oranges. Okay. I will submit that there's definitely disparities in how Black protesters are treated. But these folks were not your average Black protesters, and as we begin to see and understand the personalities and the not only the faces, but the names behind the folks, these old white men, some of them, I believe, were former police officers themselves, military folks, people that came to really insurrect. They were there to do what they did. And so, and because of this claim of some collusion with Capitol Hill Police, I think we're mixing a little bit of apples and oranges. And so, and even what we saw in Black Lives Matter Plaza, that was a command from the president to move and to treat and to push those people forward so that the president could have his show in front of a church. Yeah. So I know that we've seen it throughout history that there are different ways in which people are treated. We saw it even when we go back to Kent State and some of those situations in the past where young Black and white folks were killed by police officers in their attempt to express their views about issues. I'm just not wanting to make that comparison here. Yeah.
And again, we have the privilege of having Denise Rolark Barnes of the Washington Informer. You guys got to pick up the Washington Informer. It's probably, if it's not the best, it's certainly one of the best African-American owned newspapers, but newspapers period. Denise, we got some footage from your own Anthony Tillman, however you pronounce his name, but he's a great guy. I'm trying to pronounce the G in there, but it's silent. But we got some footage. Let's roll that footage.
This officer, for example, is riot control here. And as I was saying, well, we do not get the impression that they will hesitate to use those riot control measures.
Wow. And so the fallout is continuing. The Capitol Police chief has resigned. There has been calls, and there is an active investigation into their actions. And as you stated, they didn't call for any help beforehand, knowing that there was this potential situation, Denise.
You're right. And those of us who live in the nation's capital know that this is a police state where we live in Washington, D.C. We have over close to 30 police departments, everything from the zoo police who can arrest you off of zoo grounds. So we have lots of police in the District of Columbia that could have come and supported the Capitol Hill Police had they asked. And apparently they did not. They waited until the situation got out of control. And then forces who fortunately were on standby, were able to come in and to support and protect the Capitol and the lawmakers that were inside.
Yeah, and I know Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, and the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, are leading the calls for a thorough investigation. But not only that, they and other lawmakers, Denise, as we segue over to the president of the United States, there's a lot of calls now for Mike Pence to use the 25th Amendment. He has now officially declined to do that. There's talk about articles of impeachment. He's got 12 days left. A lot of his cabinet has started to abandon him, including Betsy DeVos, the education secretary. They are saying enough is enough. Well, a lot of people are wondering, Denise, enough is enough.
Enough has been enough, Stacy.
Yeah, there you go. So removing the president 12 days ago, does it matter at this moment? Or, I mean, some say he's very dangerous even now.
Well, he is. And I mean, 12 days is a short period of time, but in Trump land, it's a long time. And even if they, start in that manner, begin to take on that, that call to have him removed, it's still going to take about 12 days to get that done. I don't think it's going to happen automatically. So somebody said, just put him on a plane and send him back to Mar-a-Lago and let him, go play golf so that we can get this country back together. And it's going to take a lot of work, because what we saw on that day, and what those of us in communities across this country, particularly Black people, we've been seeing it for a long time. So how do you get folks back on, into a state of trying to repair the country and getting on the same page? It may take another 4 years. But for many of us, as someone said on one of the shows the other day, this goes back to the 1800s. This is nothing new. This is the DNA of within a lot of people in this country that just never went away when it comes to Black and white lives and what people feel about the government. So to go back to your question, while I would love to see him removed, I think so many would think that would be a good thing, a good final moment for his administration. I think it's just a little too late at this point.
Well, the federal prosecutors are looking into charges. Now, we know that 5 people have died. And I know you have a law background. Can you envision a situation where Donald Trump, whether he's still president or citizen Donald Trump, because of this situation, that prosecutors ultimately charge him, even with the death of that officer? These are federal offenses.
Well, I don't know how. I mean, excuse me. I don't know how he would be charged specifically for the death of the officer. I mean, he didn't. There would be some challenges about to what extent he was able to incite the events that took place that may have led to the death of the police officer. But calling for people to demonstrate, I don't know if that doesn't sound like a criminal offense. So for me, not knowing all of how one would take that action, it would be interesting to watch, excuse me, to see how a case like that would evolve. And it would continue post his administration. And so that would be hanging over his head, including all the other legal issues he's going to be facing, probably for years to come, related to his business dealings, what he's done at the White House and others.
Yeah, I just saw David Youngblood pop up. David, good morning. It's always good to see you. Also, along with that, I should say, the officer we are talking about, Brian Sicknick, here's a statement from law enforcement officer Sicknick, was responding to the riots on Wednesday, January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol and was injured while physically engaging with protesters. He returned to his division's office and collapsed. He was taken to a local hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. It's really sad. Another woman lost her life, a Trump supporter. We also saw a lot of people injured, including police officers. But we also saw police officers opening the gates. We saw police officers holding doors for these protesters. We saw police officers physically engaging, and some even running away from them, some taking selfies. This was truly unusual. You had world leaders expressing outrage at this and shock. When will America be able to recover from this, Denise?
Well, I told you, I think a lot of lives have been hurt and damaged and lost because during this administration, and partly because of this president. He took the lid off of something that we had kind of, stashed away, and people were beginning to feel as though, there was beginning to be some sense of equity in America. There are a lot of poor white folks, Latino, Black, brown, all kinds of folks who are struggling to get their lives together, and they don't have any hope. So I think it's going to be a long time and a lot of work that's going to have to be done, especially not only with President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, but this new Democratic Congress that we have, this new Democratic Senate that we have. They're really going to have to still find ways to work across the aisle with Republicans and make sure that, this dream of America. We're doing a Martin Luther King virtual parade on the 18th. And our theme was something we took from Dr. King's speech. Now is the time. So now's the time. We can't put this off. We need to confront these issues face on. And I also wanted to add that's one of the things the Washington Informer will be looking at. But long before they even got to the Capitol, there were confrontations. We have photographs of a young Black woman who ended up in an altercation, blood's running down her face in Washington, D.C. There was damage done before they even got to the U.S. Capitol. So, this anger and hatred that we see is endemic of the American way. And so, yes, David, now is the time.
Absolutely. And Denise, I said at the top of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about Governor Muriel Bowser. And I say governor, everybody says she's mayor. Well, hey, if ever a person made a case for statehood, in her speech yesterday, it probably was the best speech certainly the best speech I've ever heard her make, and maybe the best speech she's made. Talk about Mayor Bowser's reaction to all this and her speech.
Well, I think it was, I don't know if it was her speech or her press conference, but, you know, the mayor has tried, and the mayor, you know, I'm a journalist, I'm supposed to be impartial, but I love Mayor Bowser. I think that she is was the right mayor for the District of Columbia for a time like this. And she has taken Trump on many times and said, this is our city, you know, not yours. And of course, they owe us millions of dollars. For all of from the last inauguration to these 4th of July events to everything. And the mayor has not pursed her lips when it comes to telling this president what he owes the city. But I think, first of all, when we look at the fact that she couldn't call herself the National Guard, that's what had people calling me from around the country saying, now I understand why the district needs statehood. Now I understand why, and in some ways, the mayor has been treated as a governor because people just don't understand how the city runs. And it's very difficult to be in the nation's capital, to be considered a city, a state, a county, you name it, depending on what comes our way. We have to switch and change to it in order to achieve our goals. And so, you know, I think the mayor, I don't recall all of what she said yesterday, and I can't really respond to that. But the time is now. There's legislation moving through the Congress. It looks very good that we may become the 51st state. The bill's been there. Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton has been pushing that forward. We've got a lot of support now on the House and the Senate side. And so if DC is to become a state, the first governor should be Muriel Bowser.
And welcome, Joel Benefield Jr. David Youngblood said, look at every photo of those engaged in criminal behavior and charged. And well, MPD has done something of that sort. Denise, real quick, tell our viewers what MPD has done.
So at yesterday's press conference, when Chief Conti, who just became chief about 2 weeks ago, brand new chief, but of course, he came through the ranks of the Metropolitan Police Department, has announced that you can go to mpd.dc.gov, I believe it is. There are photographs that they've captured of these demonstrators. If you can identify them and it leads to an arrest, you will receive $1,000 per individual, that's per arrest. And I tried to go to the site as he talked about it. I couldn't get in for about 15 minutes. So definitely folks are looking. Yep. But yeah, they have charged already, I think, three individuals as of yesterday. And the media has gone out and interviewed those folks to figure out anyway. So yeah, there is, I would tell people to go check out that website. If those are some of your neighbors, you know.
Well, you know what? Also, and just as importantly, check out WashingtonInformer.com to get all of the latest information on this situation and so much a lot of good news in Washington, D.C. So read the Informer and you'll be able to see a wide range of great news. Denise, thank you so much for getting up early and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Hey, the early bird catches the worm. So I guess now I got to go find a worm to catch. But thank you so much for having me on, Stacy.
Thanks. Denise Rolark Barnes of the Washington Informer. We're going to roll right along. Let it be known. Check out the Washington Informer. So the Grammys, the 2021 Grammys, moving to entertainment. They originally was scheduled for January 31st. Well, they've been postponed, of course, due to COVID-19. And moved to temporarily, at least, to March the 14th, Sunday, March the 14th. But the big news in entertainment is Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill in 1998 released one of the greatest albums of all time, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And I got something today from Lauryn Hill that is distressing. Here's what's distressing. She says that she is probably never going to release another album. And talking about the miseducation, which ended up winning 5 Grammys. She said, "The wild thing," this is a quote from Lauryn Hill, "the wild thing is no one from my label has ever called me and asked, how can we help you make another album ever?" She says, "Did I say ever?" Yes, ever. She added that after the miseducation, there was scores of tentacled obstructionists, politics, repression, agendas, unrealistic expectations, and saboteurs everywhere. People had included me in their own narratives of their successes as it pertained to my album. And if this contradicted my experience, I was considered an enemy. Well, I'm telling you, Columbia, Rough House, what are you doing? Lauryn Hill was one of my first loves is Lauryn Hill. So come on, treat her right. Treat Lauryn Hill right. Sports. The NFL playoffs began, and I have a thing here. I don't know who's your team, but here's the lineup. The Kansas City Chiefs have a bye this weekend, and the Buffalo Bills actually. And the Buffalo Bills is probably a team you want to root for. It's been like forever since Buffalo sports teams celebrated anything, and the back-to-back Super Bowl losses in the 90s is all they have to stand on. So root for them. They're playing the Indianapolis Colts. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in action versus the Cleveland Browns. That's a historic rivalry. The Tennessee Titans are playing versus the Baltimore Ravens. Green Bay in the NFC has a bye week, but New Orleans will play Chicago, the Saints and the Bears. Seattle Seahawks will play the Los Angeles Rams, and the Washington football team with a losing record in the playoffs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's your NFL. Big Major League Baseball trade that went down yesterday. I'm so excited. Francisco Lindor, superstar shortstop, headed to the New York Mets, not the New York Yankees, the New York Mets, in a 6-player deal that included pitcher Carlos Carrasco going to New York as well. 4 players, 2 major league players and 2 minor league players going back to New York in that deal. So the Mets with a new owner, $2 billion purchase, $2.4 billion purchase. The new owner made a few months ago. He's said to be worth about $16 billion, and now he's spending some of that money on the Mets. Titus J. Barrow says, LH, Lauryn Hill is a legend. You know it. She certainly is a legend. Miss Latif, I can't pronounce your first name, forgive me, but thanks for joining us. She talks about Facebook having a recognition software, I guess going back to what Denise Rolark Barnes of the Washington Informer was talking about with the identification of those rioting on Capitol Hill. It's not hard to identify people. Please give us the name of that website again. We're going to have to type that in the bar. Oh, it's the MPD's website, actually. So viewer questions. We've had some news. We post news stories, I should say, viewer mail. We post some news, and we post live streams on Facebook and YouTube. We got a great YouTube channel, Black Press USA TV, but we're going to tackle a couple of those questions. So let's bring up the viewer mail. So Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas has been a long proponent of reparations, and her bill, HR 40, is now has more chance of passing now, with the Democrats now controlling both chambers of Congress. And so one of the comments came in, or a few comments came in. Tom Burrell, no, not ahead of the 100 other issues. So Tom Burrell doesn't think that should be at the forefront, because that was the first piece of legislation introduced in the 117th Congress. And then someone responded to Tom saying reparations is issue number 1. Everything else comes after. There will always be 100 other issues. The world needs more thinkers who can manage multiple priorities at once. Then we had a Mr. or Mrs. Ullman. I can't pronounce your first name. These names, I love them, but I can't pronounce them. Thanks for the attempt, but I don't plan on it. But it would be a great surprise. Not sure what Mr. and Mrs. Ullman was responding to there, but Ira mostly respectfully, but that's crazy. We need to focus on statehood for DC and Puerto Rico, expanding the court and abolishing the electoral college. There is a whole lot of Ira, there's a whole lot of support for everything you just mentioned there. Statehood for DC and Puerto Rico. You just heard again Denise Rolark Barnes of the Washington Informer talk about statehood. Again, you're going to read a lot of that in the Washington Informer, WashingtonInformer.com. And Puerto Rico, that came up years and years ago as well. We haven't heard a lot of talk of that recently, but that's been on the table too. Expanding the court. We know that Donald Trump put 3 justices on the court, and there's been a lot of talk from Democrats about expanding it and abolishing the electoral college. Well, a lot could be said about the popular vote. It has made people believe that their vote don't count when you have presidents or winning presidents, people who win the presidency, getting less overall votes than the opponent. So Marsha Baird Burris responds to Ira by saying that's not crazy, will be an not or. And not or. In this administration, we better expect to see national legislation that addresses a variety of ills. Reparations directly benefiting of African Americans is a long, long time coming, and now is the time. DC statehood, which will benefit a whole bunch of folk, including African Americans, needs to happen too. It likely will, since the deadly impact of vulnerability for the congressional visitors has become crystal clear. But the list is long, and these items need to be on the agenda quite early. So far, only 4 years is guaranteed, and that's always true. It's not always easy reading those because they're very small, but I hopefully did it a little justice. We got another viewer mail. Let's bring that one up too. And David Youngblood says, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Denise put in the website for MPD. It's mpd.dc.gov. So remember that website. Attorney Ben Crump wants the white woman who attacked the black teen over the cell phone prosecuted. You remember that the jazz musician's son was attacked in a New York hotel by a woman who claimed that he stole her cell phone. The cell phone was later recovered. She left it in a Uber, and the Uber driver discovered it and came back and gave it to her, and she didn't even apologize. There's video of her attacking the kid. He's 14 years old. So Ben Crump and others want this woman charged. One of the viewers said, and this woman should be held accountable for her actions, just as any African American would be. It's a lot of that. We have people like Ben Crump fighting, Esley Merritt fighting for these rights, fighting to kind of balance the playing field. Our president and CEO, the National Newspaper Publishers Association and Black Press of America's president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis, also a famous civil rights leader, and that's been on his agenda for a long time as well. David Youngblood, again, I want to acknowledge you. You said absolutely expand the courts. Black females, one AAPI, First Nations, Hispanic male, and one black male, all committed progressives. So David is making the case that all of those legislations that we talked about can be done and should be done. We welcome your comments all the time. We want it to be interactive. And David, we got to get you on. You got to come on and sit with me, and let's talk to the people together. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of you. There's so much news. Go to blackpressusa.com for the latest news and to keep being educated on what's really happening. You know what? As you go about your day, remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Let it be known. We'll see you Monday morning.